Everyone, welcome. Bienvenidos to a special edition of Charla con Chávez, our podcast that features our amazing students here at Our Lady of the Lake University. And today, we welcome the mayoral candidates to our beautiful city, our city of San Antonio, to our beautiful campus. How about a round of applause to our mayoral candidates? I'm going to introduce each, starting with the first candidate immediately to my right. And if each of you could either stand or wave. Christopher Reyes. Councilwoman Dr. Adriana Rocha Garcia. Mau Sanchez. Councilwoman Melissa Cabello Haverda. Robert T. Melvin. Chris Herring, Clayton Perry, Gina Ortiz Jones, Councilman John Courage, Santos Alvarado, Robert Salinas, Arturo Espinosa. Bienvenidos. So, candidates, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for participating in this Mayoral Forum here at Our Lady of the Lake University. This forum is being recorded for a special two-part episode for the Charla con Chávez podcast. As a reminder, this forum is for our students and community members to learn about you and why you are running for mayor. All participants, including candidates and audience members, must treat each other with dignity and respect. The moderator and timekeeper will enforce time limits and ensure the discussion remains focused. And candidates must respect the moderator's decisions regarding timekeeping and topic relevance. So folks, what do you say? Shall we jump in? Yes. Eso. Okay. So, first question is for Christopher Reyes. Chris, what inspired you to run for mayor, and what unique qualities do you bring to the role? 90 seconds.
So what inspired me to run for mayor was the fact that our city deficit is continuing to grow. It went from $18.5 billion to currently around $22.5 billion. Everything seems to be falling apart. I'm a 15-year veteran of the military, the U.S. Army, and every time I would come back home here from leave, things got a little bit worse and worse and worse. To step back from just complaining about things, I decided to step up and do something about it. My whole platform is to ensure that we have transparency across the board through the city. So anybody that lives here can go online and see what we're spending money on and where it's going, so that people are held accountable for how they're spending our money. All these problems stem from not having good housekeeping up at City Hall. That's the main issue. So I would make sure that everything's transparent. We get a third-party auditor, not one that we continuously have now that says we're doing great, yet each year our deficit increases. And people would be held accountable. And then all the funds that were extra, we'd actually hire police to ensure that our safety in a community is growing. Once those things start fixing themselves, then we can focus on other priorities.
Thank you, Christopher. And before we hear from Councilwoman Dr. Rocha Garcia, just want to acknowledge James J. Melvin for joining us. Thank you and welcome, James. Appreciate you for joining us this afternoon. Councilwoman.
Hi, yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Councilwoman Adriana Rocha Garcia, but I'm also a professor here at Our Lady of the Lake University. So to everybody else, welcome to OLU. This is a beautiful campus I get to enjoy with my students. What inspired me to run was my community. I am from the west side of San Antonio. I was born on Leal Street, just a few miles or less than a couple of miles up the road. And I grew up in southwest San Antonio. That's the community I still proudly call call home. I represent District 4 right now on the City Council, and I am looking forward to focusing on a few critical items that I think that I have experience in. A lot of things that have happened during my tenure as a City Councilwoman have allowed me to make the decision that we have to continue doing some things like increasing housing availability, not just affordable, but also middle housing, what we call a missing middle, for students like the ones that we're producing and graduating so that they could be able to afford a home. We also have to continue to invest in our healthcare. We saw what happened during the pandemic. I was unfortunately front and center with it because we got the novel coronavirus landed in District 4. We had to immediately go to work, and I made sure that I worked with a group to bring vaccines to the South Side. And then we also had a hospital closure. So healthcare is important, and education is important to me as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Mao, allow me to repeat the question. What inspired you to run for mayor, and what unique qualities do you bring to the role? Mao Sanchez.
Hi, first and foremost, I'd like to thank you for being here. I know it takes a lot to be here on an afternoon, hot day like it is. My name is Mauricio Mal Sanchez. I'm a 35-year-old lifelong San Antonian. I've been here my entire life, with the exception of a couple of years in New York and a couple of years in Austin. And what I've distinguished is I never had a plan to come into politics. But when I began to look at the political realm of how San Antonio is positioned, and then the lack of economic diversification, then I began to dissect some real facts, which motivated me to want to run. And the real facts are that there's not enough competition in San Antonio. And what that does, it creates a constraint in our annual wages. It makes graduating students from schools like Our Lady of the Lake University want to leave because they can't find the jobs that they need here. There is a disconnect between the private sector and City Hall. When you think of GDP, GDP is the measure of an economy. Our economy here is not diversified enough, meaning that every variable that sits behind that creates a system which I call monopolistic. When you have that type of environment, it's not conducive to families. It's not conducive to seniors, which are limited to the rising costs, but the established set income that they are receiving. And there's many issues that fall behind that, but this was my ultimate motivation. I'm a 15-year financial analyst and a 10-year independent wealth manager, here to serve.
Thank you, Mao. Councilwoman.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Cabello Howard. It really is a privilege to be with you tonight. And thank you for coming and giving us the opportunity to speak with you. I have the honor and privilege of representing District 6, which is West and Far West San Antonio. And I'll tell you that it was a long road to get there. What really inspired me to run for office was something that happened when I was very young. I was walking with my grandfather in his neighborhood. My grandfather was not a formally educated man. He was mostly spoke Spanish. And but in my life, he was a pillar. He was a carpenter. And in my life, he was a big deal. So we're walking through his neighborhood, and I remember kicking at the grass, and I looked up at him and I said, "Why don't you have any sidewalks in your neighborhood?" And my grandfather looked down at me and said, "Porque no les importamos, mija. They don't care about us." And I didn't know what that meant really when I was a little girl, but I know that it angered me and it lit a spark. And that spark grew into a fire. It led me to become a disability attorney, and it led me to run for office because I wanted to make sure that real San Antonians have a voice at local government. And I'll tell you that I was moved to become an attorney, a disability attorney, all on my own, right? Nobody ever handed me anything. I was a food server through college. That's how I got through college. But because I have twin cousins who have autism, and they grew up in the 80s when there wasn't as many resources as there are now. So everything I've done really has come from this experience I've had growing up on the west side of San Antonio. And and that's my end time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Robert.
Thank you. And I first want to start by thanking you, Dr. Chavez, for putting this together and for allowing the community to come and get to know us in a more intimate fashion. I moved back to Texas about 17 years ago. I am a father of a 16-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old son, and a husband of 20 plus years. San Antonio has been extremely good to me. I launched my own company in 2010, and I've developed real estate all over the city of San Antonio. Many of my employees live in the West Side, the South Side, the East Side. And so I've gotten an opportunity to understand and know these communities in an intimate way because those employees and their families were my responsibility. And so when I look at the economic opportunity that San Antonio currently represents, we're looking at nearly $5 billion worth of capital improvements that are planned when you consider the port, when you consider the airport, as well as a host of others. That is enough to change the economic landscape of our city forever. The question becomes, how do we participate? How do we engage and allow our communities not to get looked over any longer, but also to ensure that you're not pushed out, to ensure that you have representation that will allow for you to enjoy your home, but also enjoy the economic prosperity that our city is bringing to bear?
Thank you, Robert. And before we go on to Chris, allow me to repeat the question, candidates. What inspired you to run for mayor, and what unique qualities do you bring to the role? Chris.
Hello, I'm Christopher Herring. I'm running as candidate number 16, Chris Herring, Suite 16. So I came to San Antonio in 2006. I'm actually a byproduct of the United States Air Force. I retired at Randolph Air Force Base. And like Robert just said, I just fell in love with the city, and the city has been really great to me. I've noticed that this is a city of haves and have-nots. And what pushed me into the race was very simple. I was reading Proverbs 31, and there's a verse that says, "Give voice to the voiceless." And when I think about San Antonio being a city of poverty, and we see it in the headlines of our newspapers, and we've seen it ever since I was here in 2006, but I haven't yet seen the needle move. And because we declare decades for the downtown, but we never declare the decades where our families reside. And so under my leadership, I have proposed to have an elimination of poverty in the 10 hardest zip codes on the east side, on the south side, and on the west side that have plagued this city because we're so bad that Fortune 1000 companies simply will not come here. And our airport doesn't have a challenge because the Fortune 1000 companies won't come here. So we need a mayor with a solution, and I hope to bring that and to bring unity amongst our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Clayton.
Thank you, sir, and thank y'all for being here this evening. My name is Clayton Perry, and I'm going to flip it around a little bit, my qualifications first and then what inspired me. But was born and raised here in Texas, in the little town of Giddings. Went to A&M. Yes, I'm an Aggie and was in the Aggie band. Then went into the Air Force and spent 21 years and retired as a lieutenant colonel in the civil engineering career field. Then went into industry where I worked for a large engineering construction firm as a vice president. I then took some time off and then decided to run for city council and was on city council for 3 terms. But what led me up to that? When I got here in '91, I started out in my HOA. I got elected to the board. I then was a president of my HOA, and then I got involved in the Northeast Neighborhood Alliance, which is 90 different HOAs, and I was a secretary and treasurer for that organization. So all of that led me up to making that decision to run for city council. And I love this city. I want to give back to this city. It's home. I raised 3 children on my own here and got them out the door, and they're now successful, and I have 5 grandkids now, which is great. So I want to give back. I want to continue to give back to this city. It's a great city. We've got a lot of potential here, and hopefully we'll get into some of that today, but I'm here to serve. I've got a servant's heart. I've always done that my whole life, and I want to continue to contribute here to San Antonio. Thank you.
Thank you, Clayton. Gina.
Great. Yep. Dr. Chavez, thank you so much. And it's nice to be back since your birthday party, your 130 years. It's such a special institution in no small part due to the leadership and contributions of our sisters of the Congregation of Divine Providence. So thank you, sisters. I am a product of the far west side, went to John Jay High School, proud first-generation American, Air Force ROTC scholarship allowed me to get an education. And I know I was only able to start my own career in public service because of the investments that that my community and our country made in me. And I want to make sure those just as talented in our community have that same opportunity, right? I most recently served as the Undersecretary of the Air Force. Imagine that. A John Jay graduate serving as the #2 person over the Department of the Air Force, right? That is a story that is only possible in our country. And again, that's why I'm so committed to making sure that we're making those smart investments, even at the local level, so folks have an opportunity to live and their best possible lives. I also bring, so having as the Undersecretary, I managed a $173 billion budget, led 600,000 folks. I also bring a level of urgency to the challenges in our community. So folks can go to my website, GinaOrtizJones.com, and see the things that I want to work on in the first 100 days, right? Even if we had a different president, we still have over half the kids in our community not reading at level, math skills not at level, way too many folks that are still having challenges with housing affordability. So I would welcome the opportunity to lead, and thank you again for the conversation today. I unfortunately had a conflict with another event, so I wanted to, but I did want to at least stop by and share my initial thoughts. So thank you again, and look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Gina. Councilman John Courage.
Thank you. I want to thank Our Lady of the Lake for sponsoring this today. This is great. I'm John Courage. I've been a city councilman for 8 years. I came to San Antonio 50 years ago. I came through the Air Force, and I've raised a family in the city. I've seen the city grow. You know, you ask, why am I running for mayor? I'll tell you, as a council member, I've had the experience of working with the city in a lot of different ways and working with the community. I've always felt that a councilman for one district is more than just a council person for that district. You're really a council person for the entire city. And that's how I've served as a council member, considering what's best for the entire city. I'm running because people have asked me to run for mayor. People have said, John, we think that you are the right person to be the next mayor of San Antonio. And I'm following that encouragement up by being out here and listening all over the city to what are the major concerns that you and your neighbors have and addressing those. You know, one of the biggest ones you've heard mentioned is poverty. And this city needs to do more to work and end poverty for thousands of people. But at the same time, this is a city of opportunity. There are so many opportunities, and we need to help people find those opportunities and take advantage of those opportunities.
Thank you, Councilman Santos. What inspired you to run for mayor? Folks, let's thank Gina. Gina, thank you so much for joining us. Much appreciate you. Thank you.
Is it okay if I stand? Can I stand?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, Santos, and please allow me to repeat the question
Sure,
for the
go
sake
ahead.
of the audience. What inspired you to run for mayor, and what unique qualities do you bring to the role?
First, I want to thank you for inviting me in here to Deliver Lake College, okay? I grew up on the west side. Back then, when this college was here, we were not allowed to come over here because it was a nun school. I just used to walk by here and I say, one day I'm going to make it in here. Here I am today. I was born right down the street on General McMullen. Okay, right? So I'm a west sider. My first school I went to was in Burleson, right over there also. So you can say I am born in the west side. I went to all the schools here in the Asian Independent School District, 6 altogether. I left here at the age of 17, joined the Army. I returned back about 4 years ago after working for the Department of Defense and spending 23 years in the United States Army. And then when I came home, I would come home once a year, every year, and I saw the changes that happened. Then when I finally came back, I talked to my friends, my neighbors, people in the streets, because I like to talk. I like to know what's going on. And they told me that there's no leadership in City Hall. And I said, well, you have a mayor. Like I said, there's no leadership. So I bring leadership qualities because right now, all the problems that we have, loose animals, animal control, homeless, poverty, affordable housing, all these things need to be rectified. First, most of all, I want to bring back the city back to you because the city belongs to the voters, not to City Hall. So hopefully it works out the way you all want it. Thank you.
Thank you, Santos. Robert Salinas.
Hello. My name is Robert Salinas. I have a family business here in San Antonio. We've had it for 19 years, and we've been serving our community. Why I ran for mayor is because the tax office, property values has skyrocketed over 100%. And that's why I'm here running for mayor, to make a difference for the citizens of San Antonio and the people. So this is why I'm here. Thank you.
And folks, the production team is asking us to remain seated for capturing the production, since we will be sharing the production really with the rest of the city. Arturo Espinosa.
am Arturo Espinosa, mayor candidate, professional chemical engineer in the city of San Antonio. Saturday, May 3, 2025, at 210-421-2065. You asked me why I'm running for mayor. That is a very personal question to me. I'm gonna speak to you in a true statement format. Want and need a gift. Want a property title gift from a good woman or from a good man here in the city of San Antonio, here in Bexar County, or here in Texas. Now, the objective of this gift is for me to open a center. I asked the city of San Antonio to open a center where I and others can teach the truth. There's a woman, her name is Ruth M. Parat, President and CEO of Alphabet Incorporated, otherwise known as Google. She has a lot of technology for us. And I'm out of time. I want to tell you some more. I'm number 20 on the ballot. I'm the only Arturo on the ballot.
Thank you, Arturo. That's time. James J. Melvin, once again, thank you for joining us this afternoon. What inspired you to run for mayor, and what unique qualities do you bring to the role? 90 seconds.
My name is James J. Melvin. Vote J in May. So I was in the Navy on the USS Charla in San Diego, California. And it gave me an opportunity to understand what defending the citizens of the United States was about. Then I left I left California and moved to Georgia, where I worked for an aviation plant. I became a union president at the age of 23 at that plant, which gave me an opportunity to fly to Washington, D.C. every 3 months and lobby for workers' rights, for health benefits, for school teachers, for police officers, for firefighters, and such. But the reason I'm running is because 2 years ago I was asked to run by citizens just like yourself. My motivation for running is my mother and my father. Now, I love my mom, but it was my grandmother that was my inspiration. She taught me what it is to be a servant leader. So that's my passion, is to serve people. And I've done that through volunteering at assisted living facilities here in San Antonio. And I will do that as mayor of San Antonio. Vote J in May.
Thank you, James. Candidates, second question, 60 seconds apiece. We have our timekeeper right in front of us. Christopher, we come back to you. What is your top priority if elected, and how do you plan to achieve your top priority? 60 seconds.
So once again, my top priority is transparency across the board. I want to make sure we get a third-party auditor separate from the ones we already have to go through the books and open everything up for the city so we can see where our money is being spent, where we're bleeding money, start making moves, cutting where we need to cut, putting funds where they need to go, police, the roads, etc. My background with military intelligence and handling all kinds of situations overseas is 3 deployments, 1 to Afghanistan, or 2 to Afghanistan, 1 to Iraq. I had to consolidate a bunch of stuff at the company, battalion, brigade level, working with special operations. So I can see the bigger picture, and I plan on attacking it from that point, from the bigger picture in, and then we can tighten everything else up.
Councilwoman.
Hi, yes. My top priority would be bringing economic empowerment through education. One of the things that has been lacking at City Hall for many years is not since the years that Julian Castro was mayor has there been an education committee, a true education committee at City Hall. He used to bring in superintendents and listen to their concerns, and then he would bring in also different programs so that we could share best practices. I feel like that needs to come back because education really is the key to break the cycles of generational poverty. So a key focus on that also achieves some significant progress for us as a city. We need an educated community to continue to attract jobs. But by the way, we also need a healthy community to attract jobs. Once we get people placed and upskilled in jobs, then they have insurance and have access to benefits that could keep them remain healthy and continue to work and educate their kids. Thank you.
Mao.
So productivity is the measure of economic stability and growth. My first priority is multifold. It's to create an economics department that actually measures each district of our city in order to understand how much productivity is going into each one. We understand if you look at, again, gross domestic product, there is not much productivity in San Antonio. This is why you see poverty in certain areas more than others in San Antonio. Second office that will be formulated is what's called the Chief Cultural Officer's Office, and that's to really understand locally owned, family-owned businesses and where they lag in order to bring them to a standard that they aren't going to fail. Right now, we see small businesses fail daily, and that takes a lot from our economic development here in San Antonio. Those two movements are the predominant movements that I'm going to make in my first 30 days.
Councilwoman, what is your top priority if elected, and how do you plan to achieve it?
My top priority is you. I'm running on 3 pillars, and they're based on you, your families, your businesses, your neighborhoods. The first is that City Hall should work just as hard as you do. You guys are out there working, building your businesses, raising your families, and City Hall needs to be where you are. In my district, in my tenure in District 6, I don't wait for people to call me. I'm out in the neighborhoods, I'm in parks, I'm wherever you are to make sure that your concerns are heard. Secondly, we should feel safe in our own neighborhoods. Public safety is a very crucial part of running a city. And I think we need to be innovative about public safety. It's policing and making sure we have enough equipment and the right equipment for our police officers, but also lighting, a comprehensive lighting plan throughout the city. You know, turns out bad guys don't want to be seen, right? So when you have a lot of lights, it actually is a crime deterrent. Finally, we should create opportunities right here at home. We should grow our businesses and offer incentives just like we do the big companies. And bringing that here in San Antonio is my top priority. Thank you.
Robert.
Yes, sir. So I think it should be noted that I'm not a politician. I'm a businessman. So when you ask me what is the first thing that I'm going to do when I take office, it's understanding where are our assets and where are our liabilities. We have streets that have been in disrepair for over 2 years. We have a budget of $3.5 billion a couple of years ago that we couldn't stay within. I don't know about you, but I can't blow my budget. There's no money beyond what's on the table. So I think that there has to be a thorough audit and understanding where are all of our assets and why have we been incapable of meeting our obligations as it relates to the city of San Antonio and its people. That's first and foremost. That's going to put a lot of people on the back burner because hard decisions have to be made. So the first thing we need to understand is where are we within our budgetary requirements and how do we ensure that we can grow our city in a successful manner that's not jeopardizing the future generations.
Thank you, Robert. Chris.
When I thought about this thing called poverty and generational poverty, I'm reflecting on last week's Cesar Chavez March for Justice, where we left from this university, we went and we marched. And as I think about the life of Cesar Chavez and Dr. King, which we have the largest march, they also said that we needed to stand up for people. And as I indicated, poverty would be my first thing to tackle. The fact is that the GDP of San Antonio is like 31, and we rank 7 in population. So it's correct, we're so out of bounds. And I'm not a politician either. I've just been a volunteer to our city for the last, since 2006. But I know that we can actually work together and bring together people like you to put together what we need in our particular zip codes. I want to manage by zip code. I want to have a zip code, that scorecard where you can actually see what we're doing to make zip codes better. Thank you.
Clayton, what is your top priority if elected, and how do you plan to achieve it?
Thank you. I've been all over the city, and the number one priority that people are telling me is, Clayton, we don't feel safe. Our crime is rising. It's not going down. We're having crime, property crimes. Our cars are getting stolen. It's all over this city, and that is going to be my number one priority on filling our police officer positions, of which we're about 300 short today. 300. And I don't understand why this current city council is not putting more emphasis and hiring more police officers to get up to our authorized level. That will happen when I get to be mayor. We are going to put the resources there because people want to feel safe in walking on in their neighborhoods. They want to feel safe in their neighborhoods and out on the streets. And that's what we need to do, is have a proactive police force, not a reactive, just reporting crime after it's already happened, but get out there in the neighborhoods, patrol, and make sure that they're seen and keeping the bad guys away. Thank you.
Councilman.
You know, I have to concur with what you just heard. The number one responsibility of a city government is to provide for the safety of the community. And that's what I think we do need to do more of. We need to have more police officers, more firefighters, and the resources they need to keep us safe. You should be safe in your home. You should be safe in your community. You should be safe walking on the streets outside of where you live. So that's something that I will focus on, but it is something the council has been focusing on. We've increased the forecast for the police department by 15% being implemented over the last couple of years. The second, though, key thing is we are struggling with affordable housing in this city. And you know, you're not going to feel safe if you're not in a place that is safe to live in, or a place that you can afford to live in. There are too many people struggling to have a place to live safely, comfortably, and affordability. That's another obligation of our city.
Santos.
I will concur with them two right here, okay? Crime is a big issue. Back when I was young, living here in San Antonio, there wasn't that much crime, but there is. But before you can work and talk, first, when you get elected mayor, first thing I would do is make an assessment of what we have, okay? Because you cannot approach what you have, what you don't have, if you're not the mayor. The news media can tell you everything, the service can tell you everything, but you don't know until you get into office. So that's one of the big issues I have. And together, you have to work as a team, because what I've seen and heard, there's no teamwork up in City Hall. There's no I in team. It's we. We have to work together, because like they said, a few years back, there was some funding was made, approved for 60 new police officers. But yet the following year, one district took 8. That's not called sharing the wealth. That's saying that I got the power. We don't need that in City Hall. We don't need no power. We need everybody to work together as a team. Thank you.
Robert, what is your top priority if elected, and how do you plan to achieve it?
Okay, to start off, I love everybody's opinion, everything that they're saying. But one thing they haven't mentioned is property values. For me, they sell that one house and everybody's property value goes up. And there's people that are losing their homes because of that. If I do get elected, then that one high property value is going to stay high. The rest of it, nobody's else values are going to go up. That way it could stabilize the whole area. Because if we keep going the way we're going, we're going to have more people homeless. We're going to have more people unemployed. Because, you know, people just can't afford it anymore. So yes, we need to cut that down, and we need to fix the problems in the tax office.
Arturo.
Construct, create, and build a levitation train or electromagnetic rail from San Antonio to Monterrey from San Antonio to Austin, from San Antonio to Houston, from San Antonio to Dallas, from San Antonio to El Paso. That is important. We need to integrate ourselves with other cities. And one way to do it, we're sitting here at a university, we have so much technology here. We can build and create. And that's the way to keep ourselves connected. With Ms. Ruth Emperat, Chief Financial Officer, Alphabet Incorporated, Google. She also has a lot of technology that we need in order to expand and grow. And I promise you to work with every city council here and also with other officials. Really, no more taxes, please.
Thank you, Arturo. James, what is your top priority if elected, and how do you plan to achieve it, James?
Vote J in May. My top priority is giving the power back to the people. And we do that by supporting those who support you. The postal workers, the nurses at the hospitals, the police department, the fire department, those people that lay their lives on the line for you when you call and are in need. Those are the people that we need to support. So my key objective is to make sure that the citizens of San Antonio have the power back in their hand to direct the actions of City Hall. Vote J in May.
Back to Christopher. Question number 3, candidates. We've been talking macro level. Now we're bringing the questions down to our educational institutions. We have several staff members and faculty members in the auditorium this afternoon. So the third question, 60 seconds. What tangible and actionable ideas do you have to attract and maintain funding for schools like Our Lady of the Lake University? Christopher.
So some ideas I have, everything is technologically advancing very quickly. You should enhance the programs that they already have here in various colleges, looking into futures. There's things like graphene, which can be produced through high intensity energy, basically like flash firing it. You can burn it and it creates something that you can sell, actual graphene. It actually costs, it's more cost effective to do it that way. And you can sell that product and bring an increase to the colleges, to the cities. You can bring innovation by partnering with other universities, looking into the future for power, either through nuclear or adding carbon scrubbers for the current coal plants that we already have rather than shutting them down. There's a whole slew of things that we can do that is tangible that no one has thought outside the box to try to bring it here.
Councilwoman Dr. Rocha Garcia.
I would focus on internships, on the job training, and tying that into any type of incentive that the city gives. I am very fortunate to have run the internship department, the internship area from my department, and I know that my students get the most amount of benefit by being hands-on. So I think that it would be important to continue to focus on those companies that have job opportunities, on the job training. How do we work together with partnering with different organizations, even across the United States, that are working on projects? We always go to the big public institutions. We always focus on UTSA and on Texas A&M San Antonio. And I think that it's high time that all of the universities in San Antonio get a chance at proving how well they do in research and in different areas. So that's what I would do.
Mao. Absolutely. The question, Mao, is what tangible and actionable ideas do you have to attract and maintain funding for schools like Our Lady of the Lake University?
Yeah. So there is a We have a lot of strong companies here in town, but again, there's a lack of competition, which really limits how universities benefit, not only on monetary side, but also when it comes to actual curriculum to prepare our students to join the workforce, to graduate and stay in San Antonio and get into the workforce here to foster the economic change that San Antonio should be. We're the second largest city by population and landmass, and there should be no excuse as to why the private sector isn't doing more to fund our public and private school systems. That is a lack of competition that exists in the system of partnerships between the city and the private sector, but also the private sector and education. To bring that about is to conduct roundtables with these institutions on the private sector side and on the university side to try and meet and foster a curriculum that really services both.
Councilwoman Cabello Haverda.
Thank you. You mentioned educators, so I just want to take a moment and thank all of the educators in the room. My husband was a history teacher for many, many years, and now he's a high school administrator. It is the toughest job in the world. I've taught at both Northwest Vista and St. Mary's, so this has come up a lot. So I think the main thing that we can do, actionable that we can do, is make sure universities like Our Lady of the Lake are partners, strategic partners in economic development zones. So we can leverage city incentives, we can leverage economic development tools from the city and incorporate these into our neighborhoods. Also, partnering with local schools. I know you guys have some tech programs and you partner with the schools, but expanding those to bring especially the public schools. You have a lot of public schools around you, a lot of proximity here, and including them in the university, bringing them here, bringing them on campus. Sometimes you have to see it and feel it to understand that you can do it. And so, as much as we can bring students on campus, I think that would be fruitful for us all. Thank you.
Robert. Absolutely. The question, what tangible and actionable ideas do you have to attract and maintain funding for schools like Our Lady of the Lake University?
Thank you for repeating that. So I think it's important for us to reflect on the fact that the city of San Antonio offered a $50 million loan to Incarnate Word Academy. So I think the first thing is just to determine how much money is actually available to support private institutions like Our Lady of the Lake University. The second is to establish pathways to careers, understanding where, as a university, we are strongest, and then creating private-public partnerships with institutions that can assist in making sure that when our kids are done, there is a smooth transition into the workforce. And how you do that is by creating the bonds between the local industry that we currently have and finding the similarities, not similarities, wrong word, finding the congruent activities that are taking place with the university as well as with the private sector and building a relationship that can foster both for many years to come.
Chris.
Our Lady of the Lake University, it remains to be one of the top universities that graduates more master's degree Latinos in the United States. Great record in terms of the enrollments here. Now that we are in the era of the lack of DEI, there's no real thought, I don't think right now, developed at the local level in terms of how to navigate that. But what I will say is in this community, there is a digital divide. And as mayor, I want to make sure that as to clean up poverty, we have to address digital infrastructure. You have some communities around here that don't have internet. They don't have laptops. So the best that you can do is to continue to be the beacon of hope, but the community has to reflect the actual change of making sure that at least 24% of San Antonio does not have connection to internet. They won't see this live stream. We have to fix that. That makes us more attractive to employers, but it also boosts up the education around us. Thank you.
Leighton.
Great question. Well, first off, there's limitations on what a city can do on helping higher institutions of learning. But I tell you what the city can do is hold roundtables with the presidents of the different universities here in San Antonio. We got some great universities, and we can do those roundtables to listen. What can the city do? I can tell you one thing that we can do is improve the infrastructure around all of our campuses. You know, the streets, the sidewalks, the parking, the street lighting, and all that. That's all things that we are responsible for at the city. And I tell you what, the mayor should be the cheerleader. We should be out there out front selling our higher institutions of learning to all around this region and all around the state, because we have a lot to offer here as far as educational services. And that's the kind of thing that you need in a leader, is being a cheerleader as well, getting out there and helping sell and communicating across the community what you have to offer here and our other universities. Thank you.
Councilman Courage, the question is, what tangible and actionable ideas do you have to attract and maintain funding for schools like Our Lady of the Lake University? Councilman?
Well, I think what we're really saying is, what can we do? Not necessarily what can the mayor do. And I'll tell you what we can do. We can make sure that we vote out the Trump administration and Musk at the earliest possible election, including all the Republicans in Washington who are sitting there allowing the education department to be destroyed. You know, that's going to affect our universities because they're going to cut back on funding. Also, we need to go ahead and work on a state legislature to make them more responsible for supporting higher education and public education. I wrote a letter to 14 members of the state legislature asking them to please do not vote for vouchers. Do not take more money out of our public education system. And that goes for the higher education system in this state. This state and the federal government are selling us short. We need to speak up as individuals if we're going to see a change in that.
Santos.
Okay, that was complimenting for this comment. He's correct. Okay, right now the state and federal government is cutting funds for education. Okay, they're doing the same thing now for Harvard. Okay, this needs to come to a stop. But being in San Antonio, okay, we have to look out to the private sector to help fund the local universities and colleges, because the students that graduate there will be going working here with that degree they receive. We need to help. We need to reach out, because only San Antonio can do this, and we have to do it together. We just have to find somehow to find scholarships, get scholarships for these students to help the colleges, universities. We need to find how we're going to get money for this. And the only way we can do it is we need to go out and we have to research and look. That's the only way it's going to happen. Because if it doesn't happen, then we're going to be losing colleges funding and students won't go to college. Thank you.
Robert.
Okay, education is very important. The kids are our future. If we don't do everything we can for them, then it's going to be real bad. You know, I will advocate for the increase of state and federal grants. That's what we need for our kids. For 4-year, 2-year universities, even trade schools, because people don't mention trade schools. So we need to do something for every trade school, you know, because people need the funding. And all this starts in high school. We need to get our counselors, we need to get everybody to talk to our kids to see where they could get scholarships, where they could get the funding, you know, for that when they do go to college, everything's already prepared, so they don't have to do it here.
Arturo, what tangible and actionable ideas do you have to attract and maintain funding for schools like Our Lady of the Lake University? Arturo.
Change and define Greek word blepo. See with the brain or see with the mind. We're here with this here at this university, and we are able to create. My intention is to go to Intel, go to Texas Instruments, go to any high-tech company, and tell them to unleash their knowledge to us, to bring it here to the university, to teach these individuals, men and women, to learn all the technology that it's available to us. It needs to be given to us so we can grow and expand. And I intend to go to the private sector and ask the CEOs to give us technology. I am so happy to be here. And this is the end of my time, and I want to talk to you more.
James.
Vote J in May. Recently, my team, I personally wrote letters, one to HEB. They're the largest employer in San Antonio. The other letter was sent to USAA, and then I sent a letter to Valero. And so basically what I want to do is align them with the schools so they can tell the schools what they need in the students in order for them to hire within the city instead of looking outside of the city. By doing so, it's supply and demand. So these companies will be able to afford grants to universities like Our Lady of the Lake University in order to get the students qualified and trained for the positions they need. It becomes cyclical, and it goes on from year to year, providing each company with what they need in each employee so they can maintain servicing the citizens of San Antonio. Vote J in May.
Candidates, fourth question, 60 seconds. Christopher, back to you. The question is as follows. As mayor, how do you plan to ensure that education remains accessible to all students, particularly those from underrepresented or low-income communities? Christopher?
So we really don't have a say in how that happens. We can talk to people, we can communicate with them, we can give them our opinion, but that's up to the school boards, that's up to the state legislator, that how they handle those things. We can step in and again, we could leverage our position, but all we can do is make suggestions. It's up to those individual entities to make the choice. Another issue is the public sector. People don't know a lot of these things, but a lot of the taxes for our schools go straight to Austin. Our taxes we're paying, they don't come here. They go to Austin for the school districts, then Austin divvies it back out. So we'd have to address that issue as well and make sure that whatever we're spending, it should stay here in San Antonio, rather than Austin dictating where our funds are going to our schools.
Councilwoman Dr. Rocha Garcia.
The city can do some things to help with education, even though not directly. The first thing that comes to mind for me is pre-K for essay. The investment in pre-K for essay that was made for our young ones, continuing that, working through partnerships to expand pre-K for essay and perhaps at a younger age. But then even in the 90s, when Mayor Henry Cisneros created the San Antonio Education Partnership, I am a product of the San Antonio Education Partnership. I received a scholarship from them. I was able to continue my education because of probably a lot of the people in this room right now. You all voted for programs like that. We absolutely have to continue to invest in that, but also continuation of the Ready to Work program. We can learn a lot from what we already have seen. But how do we continue to make it successful? How do we leverage it and connect families that really do need that upskilling and that uptraining to be able to help educate their children?
Mau Sanchez.
Thank you. Do you mind repeating the question?
Absolutely. I don't mind repeating the question. The question, Mau, is as mayor, how do you plan to ensure that education remains accessible to all students, particularly those from underrepresented or low-income communities?
Absolutely. Education institutions, I think, must be held accountable, not only in the standard of how they prepare our students for the workforce, but also in terms of their financial responsibilities, because it's your taxpayer money that goes to these institutions at most times. UIW, for instance, just had the city of San Antonio back it for bond underwriting. UIW, as you understand, it's a private university. It doesn't have access to the publicly traded markets in that space, but here they are using the city of San Antonio. And to say that there's not going to be any backing from the city would take looking into what those documents exactly say. But to protect that, you have to hold these institutions accountable in preparation Two, when it comes to pre-university schooling, it's important for the city to also adhere to the standard of education that these students are getting in order to equip them for university level thinking. And I think that we can do a lot by hosting roundtables with educators and institutions in that space.
Councilwoman Melissa Cabello Haverda.
Thank you so much for the question. If you go to melissaforsa.com, I am the only candidate that has a comprehensive education access plan and as well as a school safety plan. What the city can do and what I have done is make sure that you are physically able to access your school. Think about all the schools around here that have broken sidewalks leading to their educational institutions, their schools. So I have made sure that we not only grade the streets in our city, but we're grading our sidewalks. And if you have an F sidewalk, especially near a school, that's the priority for funding to fix those sidewalks. Now, going back to the education access, a lot of us know what it's like to be underestimated, especially in marginalized communities. When we look at the education access plan, it has to come from not just the city, but from the school districts themselves. One of the first things I did when I got into office was meet with the superintendents of the school districts that I represent. They told me about the sidewalks. They told me about the children that needed assistance. So that's what I would do is with an education liaison. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Melvin.
Please, can you repeat that?
Absolutely. The question, as mayor, how do you plan to ensure that education remains accessible to all students, particularly those from underrepresented or low-income communities?
Right on. So I think it's important for us to look at the fact that there have been schools shutting down all over San Antonio. And when we consider what our competitive advantage is moving forward, there leaves a gap. We're no longer utilizing our children as a first priority in the growth and development of our city. So I think it's important for us to bring the competitiveness aspect back by allowing charter schools to compete and be able to provide access to educational options that currently are not available. Additionally, when you look at the value of education, that is the only way to get out of poverty. So it's critical that we are focused on bringing educational opportunities to these communities that may not be traditional. There's nothing wrong with trade schools. There's nothing wrong with alternative learning programs that allow for our kids to be competitive with transferable skill sets.
Chris Herring.
When I retired from the Air Force in 2011, I bought a preschool, and I was in the education business for at least a decade. I find that a solution to poverty is getting our kids into preschool education. And as mayor, since we've already invested into a pre-K for SA, we need to make sure that our tax dollars are working for us. We need to have a dashboard on the city website that shows us by zip code how children are able to get access to the simplest forms of education to include preschool. Secondly, as mayor, I also noticed that in these zip codes, there's a status of women that is horrible. The city did a study and it shows that women are having a very hard time, especially single-parented women. So we would need to have a deployment plan for those single-parented households to make sure that their children are not left behind. I volunteered for the San Antonio Education Partnership, where we help to inspire first-generation Hispanics to go to college. We still need to do that type of thing under my leadership.
Clayton Perry, as mayor, how do you plan to ensure that education remains accessible to all students, particularly those from underrepresented or low-income communities? Clayton?
You know, right now, San Antonio is owning and operating our own school system, which is SA for pre-K, pre-K for SA. And that's to a tune of about $50 million a year. Public schools are now offering that same program, so it's catching on, which is great. And it's a matter of communication, like I said, being a leader and cheerleading for these schools and for those areas to make sure that they understand and you communicate what their options are and where they can and can't go. The city is really limited about funding, but there's no problem with communication and cheerleading for our school systems. But let me tell you, I look at it a little bit differently because we have a brain drain here in San Antonio where our graduates are going to other cities because there's no opportunities. That's what we need to focus on, as well as bringing in some businesses that can offer those opportunities to our children, and instead of them going to Austin, Houston, Dallas, or wherever. So I look at it a little bit differently. Thank you.
Councilman John Courage.
Thank you. When I'm elected mayor, I will lead you in the fight to ensure that the state of Texas fully funds and adequately funds public education. It is going to take all of us working together. And until we fully fund public education, we're going to have a deficit in the quality of the students that we have. One other thing that we can do, and as mayor, I'm going to ask you to do this, and that's for you to volunteer, to be a tutor, to go into the schools, particularly the elementary schools. Our second, third, and fourth grade students, when they fall behind in math and reading, stay behind for many, many years. I want you to be willing, and 10,000 others of you, to go into the schools, work with the schools to tutor these second, third, and fourth grade students so that they will be successful learners as they move forward through the education process.
Santos Alvarado.
Thank you. That question hit home for me, okay? First, what we have to do, we have to graduate more seniors, okay? They have to graduate from high school. I dropped out of high school at the age of 17 because we was poor. We barely had enough food on the table to eat, okay? I joined the Army. I was mentored to serve 23 years. I was also mentored when I worked for the Department of Defense. What those students need, they need a mentor, okay? So they can learn from other people, okay, that had the same experience that they're having or had like I did, okay? My office would be open to mentor students if they need to be mentored, need somebody to talk to. Because these people that I will mentor will be future leaders, because that's what we need. We need to mentor. Because a lot of parents, they work 2 jobs. They don't have time to take care of their kids. And they tell me when I go to the high schools, so please mentor. Thank you.
Robert Salinas, the question, as mayor, how do you plan to ensure that education remains accessible to all students, particularly those from underrepresented or low-income communities?
Well, education is the foundation of our future, and it will work to make it. I will make it work to accessible for everyone. I will push for affordable student transportation and advocate for fair housing, ensuring that every student has the opportunity to succeed. But see, we also have to figure out, we have to have good teachers. We have to pay them. Because if we don't have teachers to teach our kids, then our kids are not going to get educated. So we need to pay our teachers right, and we need good teachers teaching. Thank you.
Arturo Espinosa.
Change and define Greek word alifis. Speak the truth to each woman, and speak the truth to each man here at this site and at every site. A person who's educated and lies, it is no good. We need to teach the girls and the boys, the men and the women, to stay in truth all the time. That is essential for every single community. At every level in government, in school, we need people who are truthful. And this is what I bring to my politics. I am Republican. That's a confession. And for me to speak the truth, to reveal really who I am, and to remain transparent to you and to others, this is what I want.
James J. Melvin.
Vote J in May. I used to hear my grandmother tell her children, it takes a village to raise a child. And I've only heard one statement, because I listen just like all of you, that really resonates to me. And it's part of my initiative, which is every school, every teacher, every student. something that I've been working on for 2 years. And we have to volunteer. We got to go into these areas that are less privileged, and we got to be able to donate our time. It is very important that if you have spare time, to sow into the lives of these children, because they are our future. So just as my dear grandmother said, it takes a village to raise a child. I'm asking the citizens of San Antonio to help be that village. Vote J in May.